Hello, and welcome to this candidate forum sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Marin County. I'm Allison Howard with the League of Women Voters, and joining me today is Joan Brown, our timekeeper. There are 3 candidates running for 2 seats with a 4-year term on the Tamalpais Union High School District. They are Barbara Owens, Leslie Lundgren, and Robbie Calson. Candidate Barbara Owens is unable to join us today. I will now read a brief statement from Ms. Owens. I wish to thank the League of Women Voters from Marin County for holding this candidates forum. I am sorry that I cannot attend, but I am at a family event that has been planned for over a year. It was very important to my family that I am in attendance. Again, my apologies. My name is Barbara Owens, a retired teacher and parent. I began teaching English and special education at Drake High School in 1969. I also taught English for many years at Redwood High and Tamalpais High until my retirement in 2007 as a teacher from San Andreas High. My family lived in Fairfax, where my father owned a grocery store. I and my brother attended Brookside Elementary School and Marin Catholic High School. I then studied humanities in French, Italian, and English at Dominican University of San Rafael. Educating our children is part of my fabric. I have been a school teacher for over 30 years and the parent of a child who grew up in our school system. I know the challenges facing both students and educators, as I have had to face many of them myself during my career as a teacher. During my career, I have worked hard to improve the learning environment for our young people. I was the first to pilot an advanced placement program. As a mentor, I worked with new and experienced teachers. And as a staff development coordinator and accreditation study coordinator, I work consistently to promote professional growth and school site improvements. Last year, I was recognized by the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, for my 12 years of service to reduce student dropout rates. I am running for TAM School Board Trustee because it is time to bring back transparency in the way we run our schools. It is time to work with our teachers, not against them. It is time we were working together to provide the best possible education for our kids. I believe strongly in putting students first, nurturing a culture of collaboration, diversity, creativity, and inquiry for a lifetime of learning, listening, communicating, and respecting the views of all, and honoring the roles and responsibilities we all share, using taxpayer dollars through informed and experienced decision-making. Again, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this event. I hope your viewers will favor me with your votes. Thank you. The candidates with us today, Leslie Lundgren and Robbie Paulson, have been invited to make opening statements of 2 minutes. We'll begin with Leslie Lundgren, then Robbie Paulson. Leslie.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this event. My name is Leslie Lundgren, and I'm running for the district board. I am running for this position because I am passionate about public education, and I'm especially passionate about public education in our district because I've lived here for 29 years, and I have 3 children who have been inspired by the teachers in our district. My 2 older children graduated from Tam High in 2006 and 2007. And I have a son, William, who's a student at Tam High. He's not going to be pleased that I've said his name. Nevertheless, I too am a product of public education. After earning degrees at UC Berkeley and UC San Francisco, I was a registered nurse for almost 10 years. I specialized in critical care nursing and cardiac rehab. Before my daughter was born, I went back to school as an adult to San Francisco State University, and I earned a degree in civil engineering. I am currently a director and program manager at a major engineering firm. For the last 22 years, I've overseen very large multi-million-dollar budgets and projects. I've overseen government contracting and procurement, staffing and personnel, and community outreach and stakeholder involvement. I also volunteer my time to the school and district. I'm a volunteer at Tam High as a member of the site council representing a parent's point of view. Last year, I was a member of the District Superintendent's Parents Advisory Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Leslie. Robbie?
Hey, I'm Ravi Calson. I'm running for the school board here because I really believe in bringing a new, fresh perspective to the way our schools are run. I recently was a student at Redwood, and I want to bring the real experiences of students up in the way we make our decisions, so we make smarter decisions. I'm a member of the Wellness Advisory Board in the district, helping open up our new wellness center at Redwood that's going to be providing comprehensive mental health and substance use services to our students. And I'm very hopeful that with strong leadership on the board, we're going to continue to improve on those services and make sure every student in the district gets the help that they need. I've also been a member of the Marin Mental Health Board. I'm a member of the California Mental Health Planning Council, and I understand a lot of the issues that our students are facing in the community, and I work on it a lot, and it really tugs on my heartstrings seeing a lot of the struggles on the streets of our students, and I think we can create a much better system to support them. I believe in student-driven education, student-centered education that is meaningful to students. I think we have a lot of room for improvement in making our schools truly engaging with true, where kids are actually excited to come to school every day. And we have wonderful schools, and I think by raising up student voice, by making our schools more in touch, we're going to make our district the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Robbie. Now for the questions. The candidates will have 2 minutes to respond. We'll start with Robbie Paulson, then Leslie Lundgren. Robbie, what is your vision for the ideal public education, and how close would you say the district is to meeting this ideal?
Well, I think my idea, I used to work at the Exploratorium, which is a science museum in San Francisco that is interactive. And I've seen education that is fun, that kids love to participate in. And that's my ideal education, is schools where kids are excited to come to school every day, where they have things that they're meaningful to them, that's real, that they can do. I believe in that very strongly. Our district, we have a lot of opportunities because we're a highly educated district. And a lot of our students are successful. We have a kind of a culture of student leadership where many of our students are doing big projects already. I just heard about a kid who started a company for providing information on cars to potential buyers. It's an incredible thing. I think we need to do a better job in tapping into those kind of students to make our schools kind of have a real culture of having students feel empowered and be in a meaningful place, doing meaningful work in the schools.
Thank you. And Leslie, what is your vision for the ideal public education, and how close would you say the district is to meeting that goal?
My vision for the ideal public education is that there is equal access for all students to get an education. And with that, I think that our school district is doing a fairly good, or I should say a very good job. In addition to that, I think it's very important that we think about how do you get to that point. And the district has a mission statement, and in that mission statement, I don't have it memorized, but it discusses the mission of the district, which includes the fact that we want our children to have choices when they graduate. We don't say that every child must go to college, but we want it to be their choice. And we want the full picture for the child in a whole to be given support. So that is the district's goal. To get to that point, I think it's important to have very, very good teachers that are diverse and can address students' needs of wide ranges. It's very important to have involve parents and guardians and a supportive community. And from that standpoint, I think our district is very blessed. There's areas that I agree with Robbie we could use some improvement. In our attempt to make an equitable education, I think at times maybe we have limited what really have been interventions. But with that said, I'm very optimistic for our district, and I think we're very close to the ideal public education experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. For our second question, what would you say the district's greatest capital needs are right now, and how should those needs be addressed? And we'll begin with you, Leslie.
The district's greatest capital needs, actually, we just got through an entire reconstruction of all the campuses. So I would have to say the greatest capital needs that I'm aware of really are in the form of some of the additional, more in the way of supplies, and I guess I wouldn't necessarily call that capital. You could consider the fact that our enrollment is increasing. You might want to think that we have a capital need in terms of more buildings. We may need to have more portables. But we're actually very lucky with the latest measure. We have just finished a complete renovation of all of the campuses. Thank you.
Thank you. And Robbie.
Yeah, we've most of our facilities are in pretty good shape because of bond measures in the past. I do have to say, we're at the new wellness centers that are opening up, we're constructing our first wellness center and reformatting an old counseling center at Redwood to be more receptive to students. And I believe moving forward, we have to make sure that we make sure that our wellness centers have good facilities that are open and have availability to students.
Thank you, Robbie. So, building on some of the things that you both addressed from the first question, what would you say are the three biggest challenges facing the district, and how would you address those challenges?
Mm-hmm.
Robbie, we'll begin with you.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, well, not necessarily foremost, but most impending is our budget. You know, we're looking at deficits down the line. We need to be opening up a wider discussion with all members of the community to figure out how we're going to work with the changes that are coming in the budget. But also, I think when getting really real with what students are facing, I think one of the biggest issues is our substance abuse and mental health issues. We have almost 60% of our 11th graders report smoking marijuana, 75% report drinking, 20% report considering suicide in the last year. So that is a place we need to improve upon. I think the Wellness Center program is an important place to add on to and to address those needs. And then thirdly, I think if people have been watching the news, we're starting a new era in the district. We are starting a new era. We've had a lot of troubles in the past with the leadership. We lost most of our leadership staff in the last year. We are starting new, and we need to be working creatively to enter this new era.
Thank you, Robbie. And Leslie, what are the three biggest challenges facing the district, and how would you address those?
The three biggest challenges facing the district are the increasing projections for enrollment over the next 5 years, and the budget and the revenue that will not match that increase in enrollment. The second is the position we're in now. We're in a position of rebuilding, and that's going to be very, very hard. That's going to be a lot of hard work. There's a lot of work to be done there, and rebuilding trust and credibility with the stakeholders and working closer with the teachers. And the third, I have to agree, we have a very serious substance abuse problem, and it's not just in our schools. It really is a community issue. So in terms of how I would address them, first starting with the budget, I think it would be very helpful to take a step back and look at our mission statement, look at what we're trying to do, and look at what we need, how we need to get there. I sometimes get the impression that because of the way the schedules happen to be at the district, sometimes our approach has been a little bit piecemeal, at no fault of anyone, but I think it would be helpful to take a step back, look at what we have and what we really, really need. We need to look at where we can cut costs and how we can increase revenue, but first where we can cut costs before we ever think about increasing the revenue. The number two issue is actually going to be complicated. It's a lot harder than one thinks to be transparent. And it's not easy. It's not just a matter of providing information. It's really trying to consider how will that information be heard and understood, and that's not easy. That will take a multifaceted approach and a lot of work with and collaboration with the community, teachers, students, parents, and administrative staff. And then the third, as Robbie was pointing out, The district now is embarking on a wellness center, but I think because it is a community problem, I don't have the answer now, but we really need to work as a community, because with all those children that have these issues, they have parents in a family home that maybe is also influencing that behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. So for the next question, since we addressed some challenges, where would you say the district has excelled in the last few years, and where has it done poorly? Leslie, we'll begin with you.
Okay. You know, whenever someone asks me what's great about our district, I always come back to the teachers, and I think that's what you will always hear. I base that not just on my personal experience as a parent, and mind you, I think parents are probably the greatest critics when it comes to teachers, but I base that on my time at Tam High Site Council. I was involved with a WASC evaluation, and WASC stands for Western Association of Schools and Colleges, Schools Association. And during that evaluation, there were many, many meetings that the councils had, the principals had, and they brought parents together and the community and asked, questions about what were the strengths and weaknesses of the schools. And number one, we always heard how great the teachers are at the schools. And then in addition to that, it's really impressive that our teachers have continued to go far above what their requirements are for the job. We have teachers that have focused master's degrees, that have PhDs, that do ad hoc teaching as professors at colleges, that are national merit teachers. And to me, you can't put a price tag on that, because that tells you that our teachers really care and they're very, very devoted to the profession, and that's not something that comes easy. So I think although we've had some issues in the district, the fact that our teachers are still doing a great job, that is a major, 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 that's a major message about where our teachers are. And I have a short time, but I'll tell you where we have fallen short, and that goes back to an earlier comment. And again, I think it snuck up on the district, but we need to work at being more transparent and being more open and working collaboratively with a two-way communication with our community, staff, teachers, and parents. Thank you.
Thank you. And Robbie, where do you think the district has excelled, and where has it done poorly in the last few years?
Yeah, well, I think starting off, our district's biggest asset is the students. We have great students in our district, and I think if we keep on working creatively and working with our students to build our schools, collaborating, we're just going to make great changes and create more comprehensive community solutions to the challenges we face. One place that we do need to improve upon is our mental health and substance use treatment. And I will bring it back a little bit, because I know Barbara went on the record with a leader of the Twin Cities Coalition for Healthy Kids that she's not sure about our wellness program. And I have to say that the truth is we've lost dozens of kids to overdoses after they've left our district with their addictions not treated. We have, according to stats nationwide, kids who have mental health or substance use issues, only about 30% of them will receive treatment. Of those 30% of kids who receive treatment, 70% receive that treatment in schools. If we do not have treatment in schools, the majority of kids will not receive the services they need. And it's very critical that we continue to build those services and make sure that every kid gets the help they need, because the number one priority for our district is the health and safety of our students.
Thank you, Robbie. And the next question is for you to begin with. How should teacher performance be measured, and what are some challenges in evaluating teachers?
Well, I was walking around the campuses just a few weeks ago, and I talked with a student about that very question. And it was so interesting, because first thing I was just asking him what he was thinking about the district, and he brought up a teacher that he was having a problem with. And I said, I don't know the other side of the story, but I heard what he was saying, and I said, I was like, well, why, if you have such a problem with this teacher, why don't you send in a report or something, you can file a complaint. And he's like, no, I'm not sure. He didn't really want to do it. And so I was like, I wonder what the barriers are. So I actually went into the Redwood campus and I said, hey, can I get a complaint form? They didn't have any complaint forms available. I had to get somebody to print it out for me. And just to see that there was so little onus put on to giving students a voice in having some sort of empowerment in their education, make sure that they have a voice if they have a grievance. I think that's the key missing part of teacher evaluation, is making sure we just have that student voice, where kids, just to feel that empowerment, that if you have an issue, you can have a discussion about it with your school, is very important. And I'd like to increase and strengthen the protections that our students have, the empowerment they have, to make sure that they can have a voice in their education.
Thank you. And Leslie, how should teacher performance be measured, and what are some challenges in evaluating teachers?
Well, when we consider how teachers' performance should be measured, I think we need to think about what we're going to do with the evaluation once we get it. If the evaluation is sincerely and truly meant to help the teacher improve their performance, and also help the people giving the evaluation do better at supporting the teacher, then I really think the best way to do an evaluation is 360 evaluation, which is common now in industry. And that goes along with what Robbie was saying, in that students would have a part in evaluating. Fellow colleagues of the teachers would have a part in providing an evaluation, support staff and the administration. With that information, it can really help the individual, in this case the teacher, get a full picture of their performance. But with that said, there's some drawbacks. And one drawback, I think, with any line of work is that we often, and I think it's the same case with teachers, is that we often save all of our evaluation until that one magical day of the year that we do an evaluation. And people by nature tend not to want to be confrontational, so they wait and they pour it all on that day, or they feel uncomfortable because it's an official evaluation and they're not truthful. So there has to go hand in hand a feeling of trust and collaboration with the students, teachers, co-workers, and administration, so that throughout the year there's meaningful dialogue and meaningful feedback, so that we have ongoing in performance. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And the next question will begin with you. Okay. Describe your decision-making style. How will this be an asset as a school board member?
My decision-making style, well, my background is in nursing and engineering, so that gives you a little bit of an insight of how I make decisions. Usually when I make a decision, and if it's a decision, first of all, that's not an emergency, that I know that I don't have to respond quickly because there's no danger of somebody's life in the balance, I try at first just get as much information as I can. Talk to as many people, listen to as many people, read what I need to read, and ask a lot of questions. The first step is a lot of fact-finding. And then from there, trying to understand if it's a decision that's controversial, or that there's more than one side of the story, trying to find a middle ground, something that really meets the needs of everyone around the table. And I am very good at that. I've done that for over 20 years. And in the case here, what we always have to remember, what is our goal? We go back to, it's always the student. It's always the student's health and safety, staff health and safety, and students improving their life in our schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And Robbie, will you describe your decision-making style and how that will be an asset as a school board member?
Right. Well, I'm very congenial. And I like to hear everybody's perspective on something. I think that's one of the critical parts that's been missing when I was looking at the SWOT analysis, when we were looking for a new superintendent. We did a strengths, weaknesses assessment for the whole district, and what kept on coming up with people they wanted a board. The biggest criticism of our board was that they were not visible and that they were not available. And when elected, I will certainly listen to everybody. I'm very visible. I'm very often at our schools, and just continue to be an open ear for everybody.
Thank you, Robbie. And the next question will begin with you. What specifically would you like to see your superintendent focus on in 2016?
Well, I think working on this new wellness center program is a critical part. We need to, we need community solutions, community partners. We need to continue setting that up, even though we have some budget issues that we need to get over. We need to also work creatively to make sure that our kids' safety and health come first, and making sure that we have services available.
Thank you. And Leslie, what would you like to see the superintendent focus on for 2016?
I'd like to see the superintendent focus on the curriculum and do a thorough evaluation of whether or not we're meeting the needs of all of our students. You heard me describe earlier that we are making an attempt for equity at our schools. And I've had a concern, and I know many parents and stakeholders that are concerned and puzzled why we got rid of summer school, why we've eliminated some math courses, why we changed some of the curriculum around science. And there may be a very good reason, but I think that we need to understand some of the reasons we've heard have to do more along the lines of equity and a perception that by having courses like that, we are tracking our children, some of our children, not to graduate. And I'm not hearing that same message when I talk to teachers or I look at the curriculum myself. My older son benefited from a math course that was eliminated that I think really it was a great math course, but I still don't understand why it was eliminated. And same with summer school. And to be honest, I think that goes a little bit along the ways with what Robbie was saying. Here we are trying to look at the total student, support them mentally, support them in every way we can. And there's many students that just need to have an option of other types of courses. It doesn't mean that we're not being equitable. So I would like to ask the superintendent, if I'm elected, to please do a thorough review of the programs that we've cut and explain whether he thinks it is necessary or not. And then once he does that, that'll help us when we look at the budget and look at where we need to cut costs and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Building on that idea of really helping students with curriculum changes, how can the district support students in high school that are not able or ready to go to college?
Well, that's a good question, and that's something I think about a lot. And I've had personal experience in my family with that from both ends of the spectrum. And when my older children were there, one of my children could go to college, but he really didn't want to. He really wasn't ready for it. And my other child loved school, wanted to go to college. And at that time, and that was 2006 and 2007, I felt that both of their needs were being met. And I was really happy about that. There's always room for improvement, but their needs were being met. And I think that's so important at such a young age. There's so much pressure for our kids to go to the best college, to be the perfect child, to be a perfect, athlete. And we forget that this is a small period in their life, and we need to think about what sort of resources and support we are providing them so that they can make choices in a healthy way, not just in school, but as they grow into adulthood. So that, I think, is number one. I'd want to look at some of these, what I think we have actually changed our curriculum in some ways to really lean towards the high achieving students, and I'm not sure that's the right approach. The other part of it is along the lines of what Robbie's spoken of. I too think, and I have to say, I know Barbara Owens is for a wellness center. I think she's confused about some of the details with this wellness center in terms of just the scope and the cost, and just wants more information. I want to clarify that, but we do need to look at that. Things are different now. We know a lot more. We know we need to provide more for our students in the way of mental health and interventions for substance abuse. When my older kids were at TAM, it was the era where there were a lot of suicides, and it's tragic, and we can't ignore that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Robbie, how can the district support students in high school that are not able or ready to go to college?
It's about opportunities. And I see it a lot, especially when we talk about overshadowed poverty in our district. We have a big issue. And when you think about our communities, people think about money, but not everybody has that opportunity. And what drives a lot of the inequity in our community is that those people who come from less advantaged backgrounds don't get seen as much, and they don't get their needs met as much. And as a member of the Marin Mental Health Board, I've definitely seen that a lot of the discussions in our county leave out people in lower income people from communities like the TAM district. I think what we need to, it's not just the schools providing opportunities and making sure that we can plug those kids into jobs, educational vocation, College of Marin, but it's also about community solutions and making sure getting our county on board, local CBOs, to be taking a really hard look at community development in the TAM district as a whole, seeing where we can support communities that may be at need for their kids to have opportunities coming out of high school, whatever those opportunities may be.
Thank you, Robbie. So we're now going to have our last question. Robbie, we'll begin with you. How will you communicate your work on the school board to your constituents? So for example, if you were to send a newsletter after your first few months on the board, what general areas or topics would be in the newsletter and would be most important to communicate?
Yeah, well, I'd be talking about wellness of our students, talking about how we're going to build up the student voice in our district, making sure, and how are we going to build up the voice of everybody in the community too. Remember, we're getting into a new era here. We have a new superintendent, Dr. Yoshihara, who I'm very excited about, and it'd be a long newsletter. Because there's a lot to say. We're starting new, we're starting fresh, and I'm hoping to have a lot to report when that comes.
Thank you, Robbie. And Leslie, how would you communicate your work to your constituents if you were to create a newsletter for those first few months on the job?
The way I would communicate my work to our constituents would be with the other board members. Currently, the board president sends out an email newsletter every month with the work that's being done by the governance committee, and I think I'd really want that to continue, and I would, if I'm elected, would provide input to the board president. The other thing I would like to do is have an ongoing open office hour, so to speak, and I would like to find places in various parts of the district to have a standing meeting or standing open session where people could drop by and just talk about what their concerns are. I think along what we've discussed earlier, that it is hard because the role of the board member is to represent the community. We're supposed to be a democratic representation of the community, so we work for the community. So it's not going to be just me describing to the community what I'm doing, but more importantly, I want to hear from the community, and finding ways to get that information will be challenging, but it can be done in the form of hotlines, telephone, open forums, community meetings, and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. That ends the questions. Before we go to the candidates' closing statements, I have a few useful tips for the upcoming election. Election Day is Tuesday, November 3rd. The last day to register to vote is October 19th, or to re-register if you have changed your name or moved since you last voted. Your sample ballot will include a request form for a vote-by-mail ballot. Requests must be received by October 27th. You can watch our debates on the website of the League of Women Voters at marinlwv.org or the Community Media Center of Marin at cmcm.tv. And candidates are provided a free webpage on our election site at smartvoter.org. The polls will open in room 121 in the Civic Center on October 5th, 29 days before the election, open from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The League of Women Voters welcomes both men and women members, and we hope you will join us in our important work. Now the candidates will make closing statements of 2 minutes. We'll start with Robbie Calson.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you everybody who helped put together this debate. Is really great for the community to have this resource, getting us to talk. I'm just hopeful that people watching this will say, hey, Robbie's not a bad candidate for the school board this coming November. I'm hoping to bring more wellness services to our district to help the whole student, bring more community voice and engagement, bringing up those students. And I thank you very much. And please vote for a youth voice for TAM Union by voting for me this November.
Thank you, Robbie. And Leslie Lundgren.
Thank you. We have a great district. And we have a great district because we have great teachers. We have an amazing student body. We have dedicated parents and guardians. And we have a supportive community that supports public education. But our district stumbled. And while credit is due to the Marin County Office of Education and the current board's leadership for basically hitting the reset button for our district this summer, there's a lot of work to do. It's hard to rebuild. The district needs to address serious budget issues. The district needs to rebuild trust and credibility at all levels and re-engage with all stakeholders. This is hard work. It's serious work. But that is what I do. That is what I do every day at work professionally and what I've done for over 20 years. So I have the experience and the expertise to do this job. And there's no doubt it's a job. It'll be taking on a second job, and it's a serious job. But I promise you I have the personal investment and the integrity to do the job well. I'd be honored to have your vote, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters again for hosting this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That ends the Candidates Forum. Thank you again to our candidates, to Joan Brown, our timekeeper, and to you, the voters, for joining us. Thank you.